The recording is in progress.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. We're recording on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday, and I am feeling different levels of mental clarity. But right
Mm,
now it seems to be going good, you know?
yes. I'm glad.
Like the Olympics are still going strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if you've been watching any events in particular, but volleyball is always a big
Mm.
one for me.
Okay.
What about you?
I did catch the US volleyball team playing like the last two sets. I can't even take credit for watching the game. I've been watching a lot of basketball, men and women, just the US teams, and soccer. And the US women's national team lost, so there's a lot of joy that has left my body.
Man, that is just name of the game though. That's the
Hmm.
Olympics.
Yeah, this is best of the best. You can't have a bad game.
It is wild. I was reading an article um that talked about like how much like different countries invest into their Olympic teams,
Mm.
and I don't I can't remember where I found the article. This is going to be terrible because I'm like I remember seeing something on the internet in a vague time frame, but it was talking about how much countries invested in their Olympics, and they're because I am a person who just thrives on chaos. I always like to read the comments under articles,
Oh, okay.
and they get pretty racially heated.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And
Mm-mm.
like I was just thinking about like how like not only okay, bias is a nice way to put it. They were biased in the least on the lowest end of the spectrum.
Okay.
But like at most they were just so like what's the word? Xenophobic.
Okay.
They were so xenophobic, and it was like all of these people like just calling out like race, doing all of these like racist stereotypes, like assuming the worst of a country that is not your own, like,
Mm-hmm.
and just playing on these like racial caricatures, and just I just ah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just makes me want to A, fight everyone on the internet, and B, like literally meet up to fight people on the internet.
Yes, that's what the comment section I think is for, to help entice violence, because people say some crazy stuff. But that is something I appreciate about I did not watch the whole opening ceremony, but I did watch when countries walked in, and just to see people from different countries and see how they were dressed and see how they entered, for me at least, gave a face to different countries that I never maybe won't have the opportunity to go to or haven't been to yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little helpful, but I get what you mean. If you think a certain way about a country because of how racist our media is, those viewpoints are gonna show up.
And I'm like sitting here just thinking like, oh my goodness, why would like I feel this also just might be me criticizing the US because I'm from the US,
Mm-hmm.
but like I'm just like, why does like racial profiling and big Western stereotypes, why does that feel like it's something that is so unique specifically to the US? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know that other countries can have biases. Um, and I've had friends from other countries talking about like their racial biases and inequities from their countries. But I'm also just sitting here going like, why does racial justice always feel like a US thing, or racial injustice feel like a US thing? Whereas like we know that like global racism also exists.
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't even know how to begin to and begin to answer it. I do think a lot of that is because we're Americans. And
Mm.
so we're in the middle of all of the things and all of the injustice in America, as opposed to, because I don't think other countries like broadcast what they're going through as much as we have access to what is happening here.
Mm. And I mean, like historically, just like, well, it all started when European explorers decided to circumvent the globe. No, I'm kidding. But like, it just like if it started, if like, I don't want to say racism started in Europe, but like if like that trend was a thing, how is it that like the US really, really embraced it though? Like hardcore did.
Mm. Yeah, because, well, maybe it's different because America was founded on racism. Like,
True.
Europeans came over, found land, took it from Native Americans, and then brought slaves with them. And slaves built up America, as opposed to like Europe being something was there before slavery.
True. That makes a lot of sense. And so like since it's just like woven into our infrastructure, like how we were talking about Kendi a few weeks ago, talking about like how Kendi compared racism as a cancer rather than an organ.
Mm. Yeah.
Whereas like people like see racism a lot of the times as just like, well, it's here. We're not going to do anything about it because it's basically our liver.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cancer.
It
Yep.
could be taken away.
Yep, and taken out um, by abolitionists and reformers and all of the great people who are doing this good work. Have you been listening to Kendi's podcast?
No, I'm not updated at all. Have you?
Oh my goodness. So one of my favorite things to do recently is repotting my plants while listening to Kendi.
Okay. Oh, that sounds incredible. Like two really great actions together.
It is one of the most meditative things that I can do with my week. And it's just so relaxing to be able to like feel like dirt going into like the planters and stuff like that. And also just being able to listen to Kendi just talk about where this racism has come from, where we're going with it, how we can like continue to strive to eradicate it. And we were so his last episode, no spoilers because it's great, but was talking about the prison industrial complex.
Mm. What a topic.
And like how it's not a criminal justice system but more of a racial punishment / injustice system. That's how they framed it, and I was like, that is so just, I feel like it should be intuitive, like to consider that, like knowing the statistics and knowing everything that goes on with the prison industrial complex,
Mm-hmm.
but to rename it as a racial what did I say? What did I say? Oh my
The
goodness.
words escaped my mind just that quickly.
Yeah, I was just like, for them to rename it as a punishment system, as a racial punishment system, yeah, rather than criminal justice.
Yeah. How much weight that name adds. even though it's what is happening right now, but it really makes you face what actually our prison complex is. Kendi is so incredibly intelligent.
So yes, please listen to the latest episode. Kendi is awesome. I will even send you another plant that you can pick out while doing that if you want. Oh my goodness. But yeah, but we also have how all you can ever know. I almost called it How I Met Your Mother for
Both are great choices, but right now we're talking about the first one.
All You Can Ever Know, which also I wonder if that could have been an alternate title of How I Met My Mother. Nicole Chung, if you are listening,
We love your book.
we love your book. But oh my goodness. So what were you thinking of this section?
Okay. Again, a lot has happened. Nicole had her baby, and she went into detail about just the labor process. And so I've been thinking about that a lot the last couple of days since reading it, but she did have her baby. So that is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I just the timing in everything happening in this story just feels so much like it's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like she has her baby and then all of a sudden, boom, hey, your bio family is right here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, both parents reached out to her on the day. No. Her biological mom reached out to her later, but like while her kid was in this like critical infancy stage, both parents reached out to her.
yeah, it's crazy. Like just the timing, and I just can't imagine being all like afterbirth hormones, baby brain, also whatever like traumatic things you go through in the hospital, because I think giving birth in a hospital is pretty traumatic. So clinical, and it's like, and you're surrounded by like doctors, and like you can't really, they try to make you feel as safe as possible sometimes, but other times it's also like and we already know how like racist the medical system is, and we've talked about it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
But like also just like processing all of this, and oh, by the way, here's your bio family.
Mm-hmm. It's entirely too much. I thought she handled the phone call with her mom really well, because she was just like, I don't know when I'll come back. And went back to her baby, because I mean, like, for all the reasons you just listed, you're exhausted, your hormones are everywhere, and now you have a crying infant, and then this happens. And then it was interesting to me because she told her sister who lived with her mom that she like just could not talk at that moment because she was so busy with the baby. So the fact that her mom called anyway, I thought she handled that phone call really well.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I would have thrown the phone, to be honest. Like, you got all that pimped up, like, new mom energy slash lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
um, my goodness, I just really cannot imagine, like, everything that is going through their mind, because like Nicole mentions like not having biological mirrors like growing up and throughout her life, and now her baby is literally half of her DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we think about it, we are half of each of our parents' DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So you are staring at a miniature you.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Can I go ahead?
No, go.
And I just love how she goes into detail about like how her daughter looks.
Mm-hmm.
And she does that I don't know. She saw a picture of Cindy too. With every single person, she goes in detail about how they look and how that's similar to her or not similar. And I just, she's such an incredible writer. But definitely now she has that mirror that she's been longing
Mhm.
for all of her childhood.
Yeah. Like I get that. Like my biological mirrors or role models growing up was literally Mulan.
Okay.
So there's only so much I can do to make myself look like a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, I tried. um, I may or may not have attempted to do the cool hair slashing thing.
Knowing you, I feel like the answer is you may have.
Yeah. Yeah.
It literally though broke my heart when she said she would go into grocery stores and see women of Asian descent and just like wonder if that could possibly be her parent. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's just like as a transracial and transnational adoptee, it is a it's definitely like really kind of it's daunting and it's scary just to like go like and see that and being like, oh, I wonder what my biological mom or bio dad or even maybe a brother or sister, like what they are doing right now. Are they in a grocery store also shopping? Like maybe they're like just going about their day. Just there's just like my DNA is out there.
Yeah.
Just hanging out. Like like I probably have living relatives. That's something that like at least in the conversations that I've had with other adoptees, that's like not something that we really vocalize a ton, is just that, hey, your DNA is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of swimming around, just hanging out. Like maybe they're like chilling, eating a slice of watermelon or an apple, or I don't know why watermelon popped into my head. It is melon season, so I was like cantaloupe.
Mm.
Like just
Yeah.
like because like you know where your DNA is.
Mm-hmm.
Your DNA like dare I say like a half of your DNA or a quarter of your DNA gets to annoy you, right? Brother,
That's fair to say.
like if I stepped out of bounds by saying like brothers annoy you, just like on it, but I'm like I'm gonna venture.
Everybody in the comments, go at Hannah now.
But like knowing where your DNA is.
Yeah.
Like, and here is Nicole staring at half of her DNA or a quarter of her DNA. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how this stuff works. Anyway, any portion of her DNA
Portion. Yes.
literally in her arms while the other portion of her DNA is calling on the phone.
Yeah.
That she doesn't even know.
Mm-hmm. Without her permission.
Without her permission.
Mm-hmm.
Like, technically, none of us gave our permission for our DNA via our parents to be out there. Like, none of us asked to be born. So, like, but like that just takes it to another level.
That is a fair point.
Like, do you ever like look at your like I'm asking this as someone who did not grow up with biological mirrors and biological parents. Do you ever look at your parents and you're just like, man, our mannerisms are so alike, and I recognize this one annoying thing about you, but I also recognize it in me, therefore I am even more annoyed. Does that ever occur to you?
Definitely. And I think as I get older, I don't know if you've seen those like Allstate, I think, no, Progressive commercials where it's like Progressive can't help you from being your parent
Yeah.
after you buy a home. it's 100. They are 100% on it. The older I get, the more I get like my parents, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm doomed. But
It,
yeah, I absolutely.
it's so interesting for me as an adoptee to witness that and to kind of be able to contemplate that, because I see it when my parents take on the mannerisms of their siblings and their my grandparents.
Mm.
But I have no idea where I might get my quirks or my obsession with plants. Well, we know where that came from. That was just my obsessive personality to begin with. But like thinking about that, like where that came from, like not even from a genetic standpoint, but just like purely like from growing up in your biological family where you get those mannerisms, those mirrors and things like that.
Yeah. Do you think you picked up any mannerisms from your parents?
I
Your
have no
adopted
clue.
parents?
Oh, my adoptive parents?
Yeah.
Definitely the obsessive collecting, because I love collecting things, as you may have seen with my plants.
I may have like seen a glimpse of it.
Just a little bit. But like, I mean, things like a sense of humor that you can adapt from just being around someone. Sense of humor, like we were talking about earlier, like terminology,
Mm.
language, which can both be a good or a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so like we know that like racism and internalized racism is a learned trait. So like recognizing that I grew up in the South and knowing its racist history now that I do, I picked up a lot of those internalized racist mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
By also internalizing whiteness, which is also interesting as being a transracial adoptee
Mm-hmm.
because I am not white.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, just things like that. I feel like you pick up, but like I also wonder because there are some things that like I'm not sure if this is going to sound racist or not. So if it does sound racist, people can come at me in the comments and let me know. But have you ever heard of the Asian squat?
No.
It's where you squat with your heels flat on the ground.
Interesting.
So, from what I have heard / learned from people is that genetically speaking, Asians might have an elongated Achilles tendon,
Huh.
or it's more flexible or something like that, that allows us to be able to squat without our heels leaving the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that I did whenever I was younger. And one of my family members actually went as far as to say, hey, look, that's her rice planting position, which is
Oh.
definitely a racist thing.
Oh my.
But whenever I went back to China for the first time and I saw that, I was like, where
Mm.
on earth did I get this?
Yeah.
So it's a behavior that could have been like some sort of like just in my DNA, because we know that bodies can carry trauma, but they can also carry like mannerisms like that too.
Yeah.
So that's a fun example of me not knowing where some of my mannerisms come from.
Right.
Like, and it's just wild to wonder like what Nicole was going through whenever she's just like, okay, is this kid gonna act like me too? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
did I act like whenever I was a child? Like, you can always go and ask your parents, like, what was I like as a kid? Mine would probably say she never shut up. Um, but yeah, that's where that train of thought went. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. Like, just what did I get from my family? And just the privilege that I have of being able to see it in my parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like whenever people say that kids look more like their mom or their dad, but saying that kids can act more like their mom or their dad too, I don't think that's something that's necessarily like mentioned all of the time, because like it's always, I feel like most times it's like, oh, your baby looks so much like you, or oh, your baby looks so much like your partner,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how genetics works. But like
We are scientists here at the Antiracist Book Club.
we have a master's of science degrees. Our masters of science degrees, because we did have to take a statistics class.
Oh my goodness, did we?
It was pass fail.
Yeah.
I
And
think.
I mean, in the book, Nicole Chung, they say that her baby looks like her partner. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, yeah, I mean, that's true. But I mean, taking away that big cultural mirror that she finally has,
Mm-hmm.
that people around her probably don't even understand how big of a deal that is.
Yeah, like that's just a fun and interesting little blurb about babies in general, I think. Like, because we are getting into that age where people are starting to partner up and start like having slash making little baby miniature thems. I'm not good at talking about babies. They make me very uncomfortable on a
Mhm.
number of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely that age where they're very real. Like you just said. I mean, weddings and babies are everywhere.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
what we had to look forward to in our mid 20s. Slash, I don't know. I have a couple of friends that are in their early 30s, but
Mhm.
I'm just like,
Yeah, that's why I found the labor part very, very interesting. I've heard of going into labor, water breaking, going to the hospital, but she goes in detail. Like she was in labor for hours before she even went to the hospital. So I was just like, excuse me? But it wasn't that much pain in the beginning, but then when it got painful, she was in labor, like physically in labor, waiting to have her child in pain for 12 hours. I was like, excuse me?
like that's also another thing that kind of not irks me about adoption, but it like because adoption is separation from your biological family.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm just like, wow, there is a woman that straight up labored, like, did all of that
Yeah.
for kind of for nothing, because I don't have a relationship with her, obviously. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know where she is. Like, I just, it's just wild for me to like process that.
Yeah.
Like, being someone that wasn't raised by their biological family. That's just, I'm just like, wow, my bio mom really lost out.
Mm.
Because like at the end of this, Nicole had a baby. She had
Yeah.
a human being
Mm-hmm.
that she's
And she took her
low-key,
home.
yeah, now responsible for. But like, there's some joys in parenthood. I don't know them yet, but like, but that's just
I get what you mean. I mean, you carry this child for 9 months.
mm-hmm.
You go through hours of labor
Yep.
and you leave the hospital without them.
Yeah. And like I used to like, my previous job was in the foster care and adoption industry, and so I just like, it's just wild to me how just separation like that can just be so nonchalant almost,
Mm,
because that is a very significant loss.
yeah.
And like also knowing how racist the child welfare industry is as a whole too, like knowing its racist history of like taking children literally away from their families, and it was a biased history of not know of like taking children away from indigenous families, black and brown families,
Mm-hmm.
like because of racist policies, not seeing parents as quote unquote fit to raise their children.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many kids like that ended up growing up without these biological mirrors, without these family ties. It's just, it's sad. It's wild and it's sad.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that we haven't like really touched much on the foster and adoption industry in the US, but like an overwhelming amount of children of color are placed with white families.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth mentioning, obviously, but like it's just, once again, it's just sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was hoping, I don't want to say I'm glad you brought this up because it's really sad, but when we were talking about Cindy and how she was abused
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, I was hoping to ask you, but forgot if maybe you could talk about that situation and family preservation, and if that's even a good example of a different way things could have happened. Well, Cindy wasn't separated from her family, but if there is abuse in the home, like how would that be looked at from a family preservation lens as opposed to just automatically separating, if that is the case?
Like, I think like communication, understanding. I am a big proponent of like everyone needs therapy. There aren't enough therapists of color, which is also a very racist industry.
Yeah.
It's all racist. We're fine. Like there aren't enough like adoption and family preservation competent therapists of color to go around. First of all, um, I think everyone could benefit from therapy at some point in their lives, but like also like knowing where that anger and that stress on the parents' part came from, and see if there's another way of alleviating that stress without it having to be taken out on the child, because obviously hitting a kid is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
um so like if it's like stress from financial struggles, because she also described Cindy also described how like there was never a day off for their parents, like they were always on. Like if maybe money and finances wasn't so tight, like if people were able to live safely and comfortably, like how much anger would be reduced and not taken out on other human beings. And so like I also am a huge like money is also made up, so like who knows. But like if resources were available,
Okay.
like it's an access issue, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a really rough question, because like there there are family preservation efforts that exist, but they're drastically underfunded.
Okay.
um there's definitely more money that goes into separating families than there is keeping them together, which is a
Wow.
history problem.
Wow. Which is not unbelievable, which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you even brought up points that I would not have thought about, perhaps like, because because separating is just instant.
Mhm.
It's like I would not even thought about ways to work around it to make sure that things are put in place so in that way separation doesn't have to happen. Like it's not inevitable. And the way I've always seen child services is separation is inevitable. It is the next step.
Yeah, it's like, and I worked in the foster care and adoption agency or industry for 2 years, and I learned a lot in terms of like what steps were taken whenever family separation was inevitable versus like the kind of steps that were put into place when family preservation could be an option, you know? Like, it's just, I wish I would have been able to learn more about the preservation side of it,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, once again, just alluding to the racist history of the child welfare industry,
Mm-hmm.
because it is an industry.
Yeah.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But um but just moving forward, hopefully, like, being aware is a way to try to make things better.
Yeah. Being aware that it's not, there are better ways to do things.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And I think like, I don't even think racial sensitivity training is something that can like fix that. It would need a full-on overhaul, in my opinion.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think so too.
Ugh, it's just it's just like any other sort of thing where racism is just built into the system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how to look at these systems not as racism being the liver, but racism being a cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and how to eradicate it.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do that, but we are trying.
We do not have the answer.
We do not have the answers. We're just talking about it.
The big it. Yeah. We are providing talking points.
We are. We are. But yeah, that was a pretty heavy thing. Yeah, the whole child welfare system.
So basically, throw the whole system away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're at it, I also said money was fake anyway. So
You did say
everyone's gonna come at me.
but first they have to come at you for saying that siblings can be annoying. Because if it's not about that, I don't want to see it.
How would I know? I don't have any siblings. So, but I'm just gonna put that out there. I'm gonna assume they're annoying. Stereotyping, but like, yeah.
Oh my. How perfect.
Oh my goodness. But thank you so much for like unpacking so much of that with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How are you feeling?
Little heavy, not gonna lie.
No.
Because like, I don't even work in that industry anymore, and I'm still feeling like the repercussions of it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does have an effect not only of the people that like the system affects, but also the people that also worked in the system too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely don't think we talk about that enough. I mean, of course, those poor kids taken out and those poor families separated. But then the people who have to do the separating, the people who have to work with the people who are dealing with like the broken pieces. Yeah. I can absolutely imagine it takes a toll.
Yeah. Like, it's like overworked, underpaid.
Mhm.
Like, there were definitely times whenever I was working within like the industry that I was just like, what am I doing here?
Um,
So, yeah,
but now you have a new job.
I do have a new job.
But yeah, very heavy conversation for sure.
Yeah. But thank you all the same for being here for it.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. I guess I will talk to you next week and we'll see how Nicole's relationship with her bio family develops. I'm excited to see that.
Yes, literally everything about this book, I can't put it down.
Well, I will see you next week.
Yes, have a good night.
Night.
Wow.